Hello everyone, this is Jotto, and welcome to a brand new series. This is the first episode of the AceBreakers versus series. Now, what this basically is that it is a not best of three, but set of three games. We always play all three games, no matter what, where we examine a matchup. So in this case, it's Druid and Handlock, but we examine a matchup, we play three games of that matchup, look at some of the more interesting things you can put in these decks. So we're not going to be playing textbook stuff all the time. We're going to be playing some of the new stuff when Nax comes out, any more interesting decks that have been coming out recently, testing out matchups, and then at the end of the video we'll go over what we think about it and what we think about the decks themselves and what makes them slightly sort of weird in these matchups. Now, I won't always be in the video in terms of playing. This week I am. However, I will always be in the videos. If it's two of my teammates playing, I'll sort of be a third person in the background, so they'll do the talking in the actual games, but I'll chime in every so often, especially in between games. So anyway, for this week, for this first episode, I have my teammate, the German, ModCounter, joining me.
Hey guys.
Welcome, ModCounter, to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, ModCounter was on a couple of weeks ago, but he didn't have a webcam, so this is actually the first time you guys are going to see him.
It's me. I'm pretty, by the way.
Anyway,
don't say otherwise, or I'll get hurt.
Why don't you go over your Warlock list, why don't you?
Alright, so I'm playing Handlock today. Because it's actually my favorite deck to play. I don't think it's that well positioned to be played on the ladder at the moment. That's why I'm playing my tournament version of it. Which means it has less AoE spells. You can see it only has one Hellfire and one Shadow Flame. And that's because you don't meet a lot of Zoo decks in tournaments usually, and yeah, if your opponent picks Shaman, you don't want to pick Handlock into it, obviously, and that's the two matchups where it's really important. Other than that, it's like pretty standard. There's a Ragnaros in it, which helps against Miracle Rogue and a lot against Freeze Mage, actually. If you can put it down on turn 8, it can actually put so much pressure on Freeze Mage that they can just die before they combo you off, before they draw their Alexstrasza. And I mean, it's still a big body. Like, Ragnaros was never bad, right? And yeah, well, two Stormwalkers are pretty standard at the moment, I think. Just one Faceless, because I need some space for other tech cards. Yeah, Became Hunter, for example. One Iron Beak Owl. Yeah, other than that, it's pretty standard. Like, less AoE, a bit more one-offs that can decide other matchups. Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting list. I think a couple things which this deck does differently is that it's playing the Rag, obviously, and not playing double Faceless, playing the 2 AoEs instead of 3. It's an interesting list. Much more of a tournament list.
The thought about playing a lot of one-offs in Handlock is you draw so many cards in games, and if you like draw a situational card 2 times, it's so bad sometimes. Like cards like Iron Beak Owl, they can be really good, but sometimes you draw 2 and you don't have an application for them. Same with Hellfire. In some matchups, it's just a bad card. And Faceless can also be really bad. You just draw 2 Faceless and can never copy anything. So it's a bit built for more consistency.
Yep.
And less like blowout moments.
Okay. So onto the Druid list. Now this is one that was designed by another one of my teammates called Birdie. Now this is a slight variation on his. I kind of went halfway, where his original version had a double Azure Drake and then he changed it to double Archon Commander, and I kind of went halfway. It's a very, very interesting list. It's not playing any of the Power of Wild stuff. It's playing the Ragnaros and the Ancient of War sort of engine for the late game, and I'm curious to see how this goes in the actual matchup, because normal Druid is usually quite good in the matchup, I find, because if they get a fast start, then it's really hard for the Handlock to catch up. But maybe the slower sort of tempo of this kind of deck might make it a little harder to beat Handlock. It does have the BGH and the Black Knight, but we'll have to see.
Yeah, the faster the Druid list, usually the harder it is for Handlock to win. And the more combo, like if you play double combo pieces, like double Face of Nature, double Savage Roar, it's usually a lot harder to win.
Yeah.
But yeah, we will see in the series. That's why you're playing it, right?
Yep, we shall see. So anyway, we'll go on to the mulligans for game 1.
Okay, so this is my hand for the first game, and yeah, it's pretty bad. Mulliganing against Druid is pretty basic. Mulligan for Twilight Drakes, mulligan for Mountain Giants, and yeah, keeping a Soulfire is not worth it. Usually, you just want your 4 drops to be in your opening hand.
understandable. On my end of things, you keep the Keeper against Warlock no matter what, and the Wild Growth, especially going second. Force of Nature, very, very bad in your opening hand. The Big Game Hunter, I'm actually going to keep. Keep in mind, for the first 2 games, we're acting as if it's like a ladder game, so you don't know your opponent's deck. Third game, you do know your opponent's deck. But the Big Game Hunter is actually good to keep here in general, because against Zoo, I have a chance with the Keeper anyway. But against Handlock, if I mulligan this Big Game Hunter, I don't have any pressure, so I just lose. So I need to keep the Big Game Hunter so I have a chance in both matchups, as opposed to going all in on the Zoo plan. But anyway.
Yeah, killing a giant, the first giant that gets played with a Big Game Hunter is usually a really huge swing in tempo. And it's usually such a huge swing that Handlock can't really recover. Like, they can, but it's a lot harder.
And with that in mind, we'll go into game 1. Okay. So, first 4 turns, nothing. More or less.
I mean, Handlock doesn't have any turn 1 plays, obviously.
Yeah, as for the Druid, it's pretty basic. It's just Wild Growth, and I'm going to be responsive for the entire game. So there's actually, the weird thing about this matchup is that there's really not much to talk about for the first 4 turns.
Like, dropping a Sun Fury Protector on turn 2 is not good. You just want to drop to your Twilight Drakes and Mountain Giants, which I haven't yet, so I'm just live tapping every turn here to find one.
And in my case, I have a reactive hand, I don't have a proactive hand, so I'm not going to go out on my way to do something. I just have to sit back and sort of wait.
Yeah.
You don't want to play Keeper or BGH, you need those cards. As we see the Yeti coming off the top, that was actually quite a big draw that I got there. Give me the actual pressure I can use.
Yeah, I saw that. Alright, so I'm lucky here. I draw a Molten Giant.
We both got our 4 drops. Both got our 4 drops.
Yeah, so we both top deck very luckily here.
Only I have a Big Game Hunter. Yeah, so the Big Game Hunter is the obvious play here. Big Game Hunter hero power. What's interesting about the Handlock matchup is what happens later on in the game, for the Druid at least.
Okay, so this turn is not as obvious, because you're past the turn 4, so you don't just live tap or play a Giant, and I don't have one, so what to actually do here? I want to kill the Yeti, and to do that I can use Soulfire and Mortal Coil, but sequencing here is actually quite important, because I also want to drop my Sun Fury Protector with the Ancient Watcher, so I have to think about the sequencing here, and sometimes you want to Mortal Coil before Soulfiring, just so you don't discard your Mortal Coil, and you have to actually kill something. But here, because I don't have any pressure in my hand, I really need the draw of the Mortal Coil, so I Soulfire first in this instance. And I also play the Watcher first, because it's another card that I really don't want to get discarded. The Sun Fury I can play after the Soulfire though, because I have 2, so even if it discards 1, it's not terrible.
That's understandable, yeah.
Yeah, so the sequence here is Ancient Watcher, Soulfire. Hope it doesn't discard Mortal Coil. You have to cross your fingers here. Yeah, and then drop the Sun Fury.
Now, if you only had 1 Sun Fury, would you play the Sun Fury first?
Probably yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I would have, definitely. Kind of unfortunate I discard a Sunwalker here, and which was my turn 6 play. And I still have 3 of my taunt guys, which are really redundant and useless at this moment, so yeah, I'm quite unhappy there.
And on my end, I've got a couple plays I could make. I've got the Coin Ancient Allure, which I think would be the best play. I also have the option of going Claw. I think Claw in charge and then hero powering off the coin to kill both minions is actually slightly better, I would say, because it keeps something on the board, and I'm not in a rush. I just want to discard a Sunwalker, so I can actually afford to take some time.
Yeah, and also you're not opening up yourself up to like Shadow Flame shenanigans.
Exactly. So yeah, that's the safer play. Although it's not quite as straightforward as you'd think.
Yeah.
I think I remember this turn. Isn't this when you played Defender of Argus open?
Yeah. Here's like
yeah.
I draw nothing I could really play. I could copy the cat here and clean the board, but I kind of want to keep my faceless. Because I would rather live tap and play an Argus here, because I need to draw into something, right? I need to draw like a Giant or a Twilight Drake, something that's a threat actually, or a Sunwalker. And so I live tap and just drop the Argus because I have all my taunt givers anyway, and this actually trades with the cat. So
yep.
yeah.
No.
better than copying it, I
For
think.
me, for me here, something in my throat. For me here, I just play the Ancient Lore. I'm not that worried about losing this cap, to be honest. So I just want to keep his board clear. I don't want any power roaming shenanigans coming out of this guy.
Yeah, so I actually saved my Festus here and I still got the same result with the life tap.
Basically,
Yeah. This is again a life tap. I just want to draw threats. I draw all my support cards, not any threats here. This is actually a problem with handlock you can run into sometimes.
Yeah, you only have a limited amount of threats in the deck.
Yeah. And okay, this is another Molten, which is nice if I because I can play them next turn. And here, just I think I copy the Ancient of Lore just to get a threat out. I don't want to fall behind in tempo as much, because I will have something to play my next turns anyway. So keeping it here isn't really useful.
Yeah, 5 mana 5/5 is nothing to be complaining about.
No, it's not terrible.
Okay. It's not a giant, but it's okay.
Better than like playing another Argus.
Yeah, better than playing another Argus. That's for sure.
Nature will rise against you.
Alright, so off the top, I do have a couple of things I can do here. Now, the Ancient of War is one play I can make. However, if I make the Ancient of War play, the way I see it is that if he has Siphon Soul, I just lose my entire board. So I think the play I do end up making is the Argent Commander Hero Power, simply because of Siphon Soul. I don't want to lose my entire board to this Ancient of Lore. If he has Siphon Soul here, I still can afford to. And I don't attack here deliberately, because I don't want to get him into Molten range.
Yeah, this is very good. If you would have attacked this game, I could just drop double Molten.
It would have been, the game would have been over. And
terrible. Yeah.
the top deck Siphon Soul.
Yeah, so if you would have done the other play, you would have gotten wrecked.
Basically, yeah.
So I think I have to. If I just drop a Molten here, I just die to the combo. This is so you can't really do it because you can taunt it up as well. If you Siphon, you still die to combo though. Like this is the
if you Siphon the 5/5, yeah, you're still dead.
You just tap here because you can still draw play your Molten and you're dead to combo anyway.
still
So
dead
you
to
might
it.
just the 2 life are not as important. You just want to draw into something.
Yeah, you
and
don't
get your
play
life a
around
bit lower
it.
actually deliberately. So you so next turn you can play your Giants for cheaper.
This is one of those. This is one of those you can't play around the combo, so you might as well play into it.
Here I'm just trying to play around, not dying to a simple Savage War, which I would at this point. So I can drop my Sunwalker or Siphon your Ancient of Lore here. Dropping the Molten Giant is way too risky.
Yeah.
So I think I decide on just dropping the Sunwalker.
No.
Because Siphoning would actually raise my life total, which would prevent me from...
And then you're still dead, so you might as well play the proactive route. Now, the end of this game is just the combo. It's a pretty textbook way of ending this. So we're probably just gonna move on to the second mulligans, and then we'll talk about this kind of stuff at the end of the video. It's just straight fun war to kill you. Pretty simple.
Yeah.
So we'll move on to mulligans. Okay, so moving on to the second game. Second game, just keep the keeper. Pretty basic. It's pretty much all you want to keep, besides Wild Growth.
Okay, so here I have a Molten Giant, Mountain Giant. Oh my god, I always switch those up. I have a Mountain Giant, which is great. You don't want to keep Molten Giant against Druid, because if they are good, they will actually keep your health high, as you saw in the first game. Some people like to keep some Fury Protectors alongside their Giants, but I don't. Because if they kill your first Giant and you don't have a... And then you have a Protector that doesn't do anything, right? So I would rather draw as much threats as I can in the beginning. And because you have 4 Taunt Givers, you will draw some eventually. This is my logic on this. It's more important to have a turn 4 and turn 5 play that is really powerful.
I agree. So anyway, with that kept in mind, we'll move on to the second game. Okay, so moving into the second game, keep in mind I'm 1-0 up in this series. We have opening hands, since there's nothing else to really talk about in this part of the game. Mine is pretty atrocious.
Well, actually, I have something to talk about here. Some people like to coin on turn 2, like coin a life tap. I don't like that here because I already have 2 threats I want to play on turn 4, so I don't need to draw into anything. Don't waste my coin.
Yeah, you want the tempo.
Yeah.
In my case, I have a terrible hand if he has a turn 4 giant.
Yeah, but you can still draw into something. So here you.
Yeah, I'm still.
It's still just life tab. I mean, it's turn 2, nothing else to do.
Yeah, that's just how the matchup works. First couple turns, it's either the druid pressures, but this deck doesn't really do pressure very well.
Yeah.
So
don't be tempted to like drop in a Watcher if you have an Owl. That's not good against Druid. You just want to drop your turn 4 Giants. It's more important.
Unless
here you can actually.
Giants.
Sorry, Jotto.
Unless
Here
you
you can
have no
actually.
giants.
Some people like to coin out their Drakes, but I don't because it prevents you from playing a turn 4 Giant here because you waste 2 cards in hand, so it will cost 5 mana on turn 4.
The giant
And
is better.
Giant is just so much more powerful against Druid because of Keeper. You can also you can't life tap here because then you overdraw. You have 10 cards in hand and will mill a card. You don't want that as well. You can just play an Earthen Ring here, which is perfect. If you have the coin, Earthen Rings are very good because they always fit your curve on turn 3 and you can actually play them and still have a play on turn 4 with your Giant.
Yeah, not to mention.
So there's actually there's something you can do wrong here, I think. Like coining the Drake. I did that when I started picking up the deck because I was like, oh my god, turn 3 Drake, this is so amazing.
You can't play the giant. Now, in this case, this is when we were playing this game, we kind of twigged that my hand was terrible because I have to actually swipe this because I don't have any. Like this Earthen Ring is just going to give me 6 or 9 damage on its own. Like I have to stop it.
I was like, what? Okay, his hand must be terrible.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, here you just drop the Giant, no question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If it gets Big Game Hunter,
some druids don't even play Big Game Hunter anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
It's rare, but like Giant is just so good. If we can't deal with it immediately, it puts on double the pressure a Drake does. It's harder to remove. Yeah.
True.
No reason to play the Drake. In some matchups you want, but not against Druid.
There's something else, which is that if you play the Giant and it gets Big Game Hunter, you can play Twilight. Whereas if you play the Twilight, it puts less pressure on them, and if it gets silenced, then they probably add something else to the board, and then it just gets the Giant just gets worse. That was time
Look
for the
at your
YOLO
rag.
Now this rag, these rags, man, they just.
I was really happy you was hitting my face here, I must admit. Oh, and there's a reason why you save the coin. Now you can turn 5 Siphon Soul. You conveniently top deck. I could have still gone for a double Soulfire, but that's risky and wastes a lot of resources. So yeah, we don't do that here.
I was so sad.
You could Twilight Drake double Soulfire to put more pressure on the board. But if you discard a Soulfire, it's just an unnecessary risk you would take, in my opinion.
Like the coin Siphon Soul off the top.
It's like the luck is in my favor this game.
I think I played the Ancient of War here in Torn, and I'm like, hey, this'll work. No,
Except won't.
the one of Ironbeak Owl.
Yeah, this is one of the reasons I don't actually like Ancient of War at the moment because there's a lot of Druid mirrors, right? So there's silences everywhere. Shaman, it's even worse against Shaman, which is already a bad matchup.
Yeah,
it's a bit slow against Miracle, even though if they can sap it, it's like a huge brick wall for them, but still.
You need to run something to complement it in the early game, is what I found.
Yes.
You can't just run Ancient Wars because it ups the curve too much. You need something extra you can do in the early game to put on some more pressure.
Yeah. So this turn is pretty basic, by the way. Just drop the Drake and silence the guy. And you also attack face here because you have Leroy and no, you don't have. But it's usually better to pressure the Druid instead of letting him draw a lot of cards and get out of situations. Like he has to trade probably anyway, so trading with Ancient of War is just wasted damage.
I think this is the Druid of the Claw, kill the Giant. Now the other way you could have done this was like Twilight, kill the Twilight with the Keeper, but then he has more damage on the board. This just reduces the most amount of damage on the board.
Yeah, you want to pressure the Druids usually. If your Giant sticks, don't trade with it, just pressure them, because they have to play defensively, and it's a lot better for you.
One off lethal.
Yes, I am actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's 5 with an Argus. It's 5+. Also 1 mana off lethal. I could have double Argus. I mean, it's still risky with the Soulfire, but still. Yeah. So here, you can life tap play defender, or you can Big Game Hunter and defender, which I actually do here because he's already only at 14. And he played his Ragnaros as well, and there's nothing else Druids play usually that can be Big Game Huntered, so might as well play it here. And because also Druid doesn't really have good AoE, you just flood the board here to put more pressure on him, and from this point on, I don't think there's really a good way to win for Druid anyway.
Secret Deathwing tech.
Yeah.
But no, the end of this game is just me getting mauled.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was a very one-sided game, and we'll talk about it more towards the end, but this is basically what happens when the Druid doesn't have pressure, as opposed to the last game was when I had the responses. I didn't have the early pressure, but I still had what I needed to respond.
I mean, your missed hit with Ragnaros was also quite crucial. If the Ragnaros would have hit, it would have been a close game, I think.
Also missed BM. Anyway, we'll go on to the
I
mulligans.
couldn't pull for his second guy. I was really disappointed.
We're going to the mulligans for third game. Okay, so moving on to game number 3. Mulligan-wise, mulligan everything, because keep in mind that I know what I'm playing against. I mean, there is some debate for the Wrath, but I think you send it back, you really need those crucial cards.
That big Hunter, yeah. And for me, yeah, Molten Giant is terrible, Power Overwhelming is terrible, Defender is terrible. On the draw, like with the coin, Earthen Ring Farseer can be nice because it fills your turn 3 gap. But it's just more important to draw those threats, like a Mountain Giant. So, if you already have a Mountain Giant in a Twilight Drake, for example, keeping the Earthen Ring is completely fine, just to fill that gap, but not if you don't have anything else to complement it.
Yep, I agree. So, everything being sent back, let's get on to the game.
Yeah.
Okay, so on to game number 3. We are currently 1-1. Now, my opening hand was terrible. Fortunately for me, so was Mod's.
Yes, but yeah, so because even off the mulligan I didn't get anything to pressure, I'm considering coining a life tap here to see 1 extra card until turn 4. Which is about, I think, 16-17% of drawing an F4 drop. It is wasting the coin though, so if it's a crucial draw to draw a 4 drop, it's really good, but if it's not, well, you wasted a coin for nothing.
On my end of things, I just have nothing to do.
Yeah, your hand is like super clunky.
The common theme with this this deck is that there's a lot of clunky cards.
Yeah, I'm not getting lucky as well. No 4 drop yet. Just life tapping to find something here.
I was so happy when I saw the BGH and then you just did not have a giant. I was like, come on.
Yeah, so here you don't life tap actually, and you might think, well, why did you play your coin on turn 1 then, if you can't draw here anyway? Because the coin would have been stuck in your hand, so it's actually 1 less card you see from your deck. That's the reason.
Thing in the end, just one of them is a coin instead of a card.
Yes, but yeah, I can life tap here, I just have to pass, as bitter as that sounds, and hope to draw something the next turn.
And then the play that you actually have to do next turn, because you don't get something you can actually play down, is one of the more interesting things from this best of 3 to talk about, at least. Yeah, drawing well with handlock is really, like you see here why you mulligan so aggressively from Mountain Giants and Twilight Drakes. Because if you don't have them, it's just, well, what do you do, right? I have 10 cards in it now. What do I do? The reason I played the Blood Mage, by the way, was because I had BGH in my hand, so I was trying to encourage him to go Mortal Coil Giant instead of Twilight.
I don't think this reasoning is very good.
Well, no, I can't kill a Twilight. That's but if you play Twilight,
yeah, okay. Actually, you're right.
If you play Twilight, I can Wrath it maybe. But
yeah, so hope to draw a Mountain Giant here because it's only 3, but I don't. So here, in order to not mill my next card I draw, actually shoot a Soulfire at his face. It's
I was
it's
so confused.
Really terrible. Like you cannot do nothing. It's just too bad, right? Also, I can life tap again because of that. Because I actually discard, get rid of 2 cards, so it increases my chance of drawing a threat.
Yeah, from my perspective, I always put the Claw and Taunt, by the way, if Siphon Soul was not up, because getting him down into the lethal bracket of like 17, you don't need Charged Druids, you really don't. You just need to make them hard to remove.
Yeah. So here again, I have 10 cards in hand and can't play anything really. Because I used my coin here, I can coin at my Sunwalker, which I would have liked. So yeah, you see the double-edged swordness of the coin play. In general, I don't do it, I just did it here to showcase it. I'm not sure what's better. Here, I think I just have to Hellfire Soulfire it, right? Just to get rid of it and get rid of cards in my hand. It's really awkward, but, well, sometimes that just happens with handlock. And actually, playing Hellfire gets me lower a bit, so I can maybe play my Molten Giants in the future a bit earlier. Which is actually nice, losing life here.
one of the more interesting things about this game is that the first game was like you had one threat and I had the answer to it. The second game was me just getting steamrolled. However, this third game is kind of what happens when both decks draw that clunky draw, which can happen because they're playing like less threats, or in the case of the druid, a lot of late game stuff. Like,
It's
look at what I have right now.
It's a really strange game, though. I haven't seen a game like this before. I have to admit.
Yeah, because normally someone gets something.
Yeah. Also, now that I think, oh, sorry, it's your turn. Shouldn't be talking during your turn.
Nah, there's nothing to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, keeping the keeper and keeping the big Amata should be pretty basic. Not playing it here because you don't want to waste it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Now in retrospect that I think about it, I could have soul-fired myself. Like, you know, on turn 3, when I soul-fired your face, I could have soul-fired my face to make my Molten Giant cheaper. Now that I think about it, this might actually have been a better play.
That's true.
Interesting. See, now I learned something. Hope this never comes up again because it's terrible, but I mean...
Now, in this case, I go for the keeper instead of the lore because I want to get value off my keeper, and I can... The way I see it is he doesn't have any threats, so I'm in it for the long game, I'm not in it for the short game.
You don't have to hurry.
Yeah, I don't have to hurry at all.
Yeah.
But I do make a critical mistake within the next couple turns, which actually ends up sort of... Like, it ends up meaning that I have issues actually holding my late game sort of prowess with this hand.
So here I want to drop my Molten Giant, definitely. And the funny thing about Molten Giant is you can always life tap the same time you want to play it without losing mana, because you lose 2 life, so it gets 2 mana less expensive. So in most cases you can just do it. I think I don't here. Oh, I do. Okay, actually
Yeah,
I do.
You do.
Oh yeah, because I can taunt up my giant, so I don't. This puts me below 14, the critical point of the combo. But I still need to draw threats, right? So I want the extra draw.
Now the BGH, I have 5 mana left. My 2 options here are Yeti and Wrath, and I think I make a mistake by not playing the Yeti here, because the way I should have read this, the way I read into it was that Shadow Flame with Power Warming. However, the way I should have read into this was that if he spends the time to Shadow Flame my board, I have the late game to do. Now this was
Yes.
This was an inexperienced thing with this kind of deck, because these late game decks with these late game situations are very, very odd to play if it gets to this situation, and that actually meant that even if he has the Shadow Flame Power Overwhelming combo, I still shouldn't be playing around it as much as I did.
Yes. Especially on like these weak minions, you don't really care if they get Shadow Flamed as much.
Exactly.
Yeah, this turn is pretty basic. I don't want to drop a Ragnaros here because it dies to combo immediately. Even if it hits one of its minions, I'm still dead. So I need to taunt up my Twilight Drake here.
Yep.
And hope you don't have the second silence, because you already played 1 keeper. You could not have a second one, even though you are not playing anything for the first couple turns, which makes it... Yeah, also that makes it more likely you actually have the combo, because you're not playing anything on the first couple turns as well. Means that your hand has a lot of situational or expensive cards, which might be the combo, so...
Turns out I just had 2 Ancient of Wars.
Yeah, turns out it was that exactly.
Yeah, that's what it turned out to be. Ancient of War snuck into my opening hand many times in this best of 3.
Yeah, it's just a bit too slow. Yeah.
So the Twilight Defender, I think, it's the most mana efficient and also the safest.
Yeah. The thing I also thought about was just playing Leroy and Shadow Flame the board, probably.
Then you're just dead to the combo, so it's
yeah.
Well. Now, from my perspective here, this is the major mistake. I snapped down lore for no reason here. I should have Wrath, Swiped, and Golem to clear the board, but for some reason I decided to do this, and I think that this actually lost me the game, because it means that I have no way of dealing with the follow-up rag.
Gotcha.
And I have to trade into here so that you can't just like Shadow Flame the 2/3 and
it's really good actually.
everything.
Keeping up everything would have been terrible for you. And this is also a turn where I make a crucial misplay, because I have so many options here, right? Okay, let's go over all the options. My options are play Ragnaros and still have 1 mana up for either Power Overwhelming or Mortal Coil. So, if I run my Drake into the Harvest Golem, I can Mortal Coil the Harvest Golem, and if the Rag hits the 5/5, I don't die to combo.
Yeah.
my other option is like power overwhelming my defender traded with the Ancient of Lore. I could also play Leroy, Shadow Flame, and coil the 2/1 that gets left over by the Harvest Golem. So there's like a billion options, right? And I'm thinking, trying to figure out which is the best one, and then all of a sudden the timer comes up, and I kind of panic because I haven't gone through all the different variations. Because I always as well was thinking about the next turn. Because I was on 9 mana only, I was also 1 damage short of lethal. I was calculating that as well. I think 1 damage? No, it's more. But I was close to lethal as well. So yeah, I didn't want to Leroy Shadowflame because I wanted the Leroy for the burst. And so here I'm still not sure what to do. So I just went for the most like obvious play at first sight, just clearing the most big stuff from the board. But this is actually a misplay. Leroy Shadowflame would be the safest play because I don't die to combo then. But the way now I do it, if you have the combo here, I just die, right? Because also not attacking your Harvest Golem is terrible. Yeah, if you have the combo here, I'm just dead. So that was a misplay. But this is why I don't like the timer.
I mean, at least I would like it if it was longer. But anyway.
Yeah, or you have like a button once or twice a game where you can prolong it for a bit, because sometimes you really have those crucial turns you have to think about a lot.
Agreed.
Like I had a billion options right there.
Now this turn is when I realized what I had done the previous turn. I was like, didn't think this one through very well, did you, Jotto? No, I played that last turn too quickly. That's a problem I have as a player. I do play a little bit too quickly at times. Now, this turn has turned into YOLO Rag.
Pretty much.
I have to Wrath Your Drake and YOLO Rag. And that is my only way out, is if the Rag hits the Rag. That is basically it, because if I play Black Knight or anything, I can't kill the Rag. I need to kill the Rag to even survive. I could play the taunty sort of, I could play the taunt, but then I'm just dead. I may end up playing the taunt. The turn timer really pisses me off here.
You don't even YOLO Rag here. Look at that.
Yeah, I don't even, like, this is the, I end up going for the full clear.
Which might also be a misplay.
Yeah, because I needed to go for the sort of
high risk, high reward thing, yeah.
I like, by doing this, I just seal the fact that I cannot win.
Yeah, because you just wasted your combo, right?
Exactly. Now in this case, I should have. I mean, in hindsight, I should have gone for the YOLO Rag because in this case, it was actually the highest chance of winning. But the turn.
The point is, though, I'm only at 12 life, and your hand is like gas. So this is safer. It's hard to say, but
yeah, it looks like it's a lot. However, if you really think about it, it's all very slow gas.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not gonna play this hand before I die.
I'm also 1 off lethal here.
Yeah, the Leroy.
And I'm still afraid of his combo because he has his hand full of cards and he just used a Force of Nature, which makes me think he could maybe spend one because he has the combo already. So you could do the more powerful play on the surface by just going Molten Giant faceless and have 2 giants on the board. But this, I'm just dead to combo here. So I instead do the Molten Earthen Ring to heal myself, to put me out of combo range. He also used 1 Innervate at least, I think, so having another Innervate for hero power is less likely. And I still have the Faceless for my Leroy, if I can somehow sneak a damage in or something, because he's actually 1 off lethal here, which is quite unfortunate. Another reason the last turn was bad, I wasted my power overwhelming there for the 20 damage burst combo I don't have here anymore.
Yeah, you would have won that turn.
Yes.
Now this is when I'm just dead. I do have to play the taunt here to even survive, or play the Ragnaros and hope it hits the 8/8. And at this point, this is when I'm starting to realize, like, I should have taken the coin flip last turn instead of taking the 1 and 3 this turn. Like, the coin flip was the highest chance I had to win the game.
Yeah, probably, because you're behind.
For the coin flip again.
Still behind them.
This is the play I should have done last turn.
Yeah, I think so as well.
And this is when I'm just like, greetings, let's try this again.
If the Rag hits here, it's not even that terrible for me. But unfortunately, just
replay of game 2.
Yeah, this is pretty basic.
And now
just PM him a bit for good measure and.
Anyway, so we'll go into the post game and we'll talk a bit about these games.
All right.
Okay, so after those 3 games, the final score for that was 2-1 in the favor of the handlock, which ModCounter played. So if we go through each one of those games quickly, the first game was a very, very standard procedure for a good reactive draw from the druid side of things.
Yeah, I had a
Big
turn
Game
for.
Hunter for the turn.
Yeah, the turn for Giant, you have the Big Game Hunter. I didn't draw a lot of follow-up pressure. You played it well. You didn't put me into my Molten Giant range. I couldn't really make use of them, and you finished me off with the combo. Yeah,
That's textbook.
pretty textbook.
That's pretty standard, standard druid victory. Now, the second game is what happens when you don't have the reactive card.
Especially you don't have the Big Game Hunter in response to the Giant. Yeah, that's usually, as I said in the beginning, really crucial for the matchup, having that.
It is, yes, it is. It is a very, very big deal. And I mean, in the second game, you do quite well. However, even then, it was more to do with I didn't have the early cards like Yeti to have a chance of killing a Giant. So I just died to the first Giant, and I had the Keepers. I got double Keeper and a Ancient of War. I got really, really slow hand, and then I had to rely on the YOLO Rag, which didn't hit. And it was, I think, a weakness with this deck in general, to be honest, is its upper curve.
It's a bit too clunky. Yeah, your lack of early drops cost you game 2 and 3 definitely.
Yeah.
And even like in my turn 3 draw was completely terrible. It was beyond bad. I mean, that was how like turn 3 soulfire your opponent for nothing. And that even was a misplay, and in hindsight I thought about it a bit more. Yeah, I should have soulfired myself.
Just even more absurd if you think about it.
No, but I mean, it's like lose for life, gain 4 mana for your Molten Giant, right? It's a card you would play. It's like a supercharged Innervate in this case. But this never came up before, so I didn't think about it. It wasn't it wasn't intuitive to do it. But now in hindsight, this is why you should watch your recorded games sometimes, because sometimes you just think of stuff you never would while playing the game.
Yeah, and then speaking of game 3, which was the most interesting one, it was the most unusual game I've played at this matchup in a long time. And I think what it really came down to was the turn where I did not clear the board. I then instead went for the greedy play with the Ancient Allure, and then I also didn't go for I went for the YOLO Rag thing. I didn't realize I needed to until a turn too late.
This is a great example of being too safe, right? Sometimes players just think about how they don't die to like the combo or how they survive to the next turn, but sometimes that doesn't get you anywhere. You survive the turn, right? You cleared the board, but from that I just had my turn to develop my board again, and you're on the same spot the next turn again.
Exactly.
You still die, so
like,
you might as well take chances there and get ahead there. And then if you don't get lucky, you lose. But if you play safe, you lose anyway. This is something I see players do.
Exactly. What it reminds me of is the sort of, you can play like a swipe to clear a board, or you can play an Ancient of War, and then it seems like the swipe is correct, but then on the next turn, you're in exactly the same position as he was,
exactly.
as it was the last turn, because he got the initiative for a turn. And this happens a lot in general. I think the major mistake I made in that game, though, was the instead of, I shouldn't have played the Wrath to kill the 2/3 and things like that. I should have played the Yeti, and then there was also just not clearing the Twilight Drake when I had the opportunity. There were quite a few mistakes in those successive turns for me, which they really did snowball up, and it's something which it's quite difficult to see these, and you can get tunnel visioned quite easily, which is why, and this is something I do a lot of, watching replays is something that helps you get better at the game yourself, and can actually help. It can help pretty much anyone. Watching your own replays or watching it with someone who sort of knows the deck better than you, sort of open your eyes a bit about how you actually play the deck properly. Because you may just think that something's good when it is, and that happens to everyone. But often that's not the case, and that is something which is one of the main things behind this series is sort of looking at what is the correct play, what is sort of what the mistakes you can learn from are, and looking at the intricacies of the matchup itself.
Yeah. Alright, this was quite nice. I think the matchup is about 60-40 for handlock, at least with this version of Druid, because it's really a bit too slow. The more aggressive versions without the Ancient of Wars and like more 4-drops, like maybe the Violet Teacher even, Seems a bit better suited to deal with handlocks, right?
Yeah, the teacher is very good against handlock if you get Power of the
Yeah.
Wild. It's a bit too slow of a deck for this matchup. It's better against Zoo because you have the Ancient of Wars, but it does suffer in its other side of the matchup. I'd say in ladder this is better, but in tournaments this may
Yes.
suffer a bit.
Yeah. And yeah, I think this shows the matchup is about momentum, right? Because the guy who can take phase, while the other has to use its minions to clean up the board, is always an advantage because you both play a big burst combos, and defending against burst can be really tedious. You can just lose the game at any time, and if you don't defend against it, you just die. And if you defend against it, it makes your turns a bit clunky. You can't really attack his face. You can't get him into combo range because you have to clean his minions. It's really about momentum in this matchup a lot.
I agree. Anyway, thank you all for tuning in to the first episode of the AceBreakers versus series. Now,
Yes.
This is a completely brand new series, so any feedback or anything sort of that can be improved in terms of aesthetic or just the order of doing things and things like that, by all means, tell me. Because it's a brand new series, I'm trying to get it to be as good as I can. And I'm going to be bringing on different people from the team every week. And even if I'm not in the actual match itself, I'll still be in the background. It will just be my two teammates actually talking over a lot of the games.
Yeah.
So it's going to be an interesting project, and I would definitely like to hear what you guys think about it.
Yeah, I think what we already learned from this now is we should maybe make our turns a bit longer while recording, because we actually had to interrupt one another a bit to get some points across.
Yeah.
It might be hopefully it's not too painful to watch in the end.
Yeah, play
Us
slower.
interrupting each other. I apologize
slower.
for that now, but I mean it's our first time, and I think it went quite well regardless.
Yeah,
The games
we
were
do
quite
need to play a
interesting
bit
as
slower
well.
for it. The games were really weird this week, but it's an interesting way of going at it. But definitely one thing we will do is when we're recording the next set of games, we'll play slower so that we actually have more time to talk, as opposed to just trying to keep up with thought while actually talking.
Yeah.
It's quite difficult. But anyway, thanks for joining me, Mod.
Yeah, thank you, and it was a lot of fun. I would like to come on as much as I can in the future, but well, we have to cycle. The other guys will be disappointed if I'm always playing right.
Anyway, this is Jotto and ModCounter signing off.